So our lock is using Bluetooth Low Energy as both an authenticator and an activator, in that it's using Bluetooth Low Energy as the way that it identifies the user, and also is the way that the user interacts with the lock to tell it to unlock. And with this, it allows us to have one, a more secure design for the lock, as there is no other way for anybody else to interact with the lock aside from destroying the whole lock. And it also allows the user to distribute his privileges to opening the lock to other people, and allowing other people to also use the lock. For example, if he was working in a group and all of his group members needed to access the locker, he could give those privileges to the other members of the group, and they would be able to access the lock as well. So, the way that we decided to do the locking mechanism is through an experimental method using a shape memory alloy called nitinol, which is an alloy of nickel and tin.
You say experimental method, you mean you are developing the technique for this application, or mean that this is a material that's still undergoing development?
The material has been relatively well researched at this point, because it's the nitinol alloy of nickel and titanium, which has been around for quite some time now. It was first discovered in 1964, I believe.
So you are experimenting using that in the lock?
Yes.
Make that clear that that is what you're doing, because
right.
that's really important. This is an important contribution.
All right. So we were experimenting with a way of applying the nitinol tool to using it as a to unlocking a padlock in this case. And so the way nitinol works itself is that it has two different crystal structures, and that in cold temperatures it's in the martensite crystal orientation, which is rather weak and easy to bend and can deform quite easily. But then when you heat it up beyond an activation energy, the crystal goes into its austenite configuration, where it becomes much harder and is actually able to remember previous states and will return to that previous configuration, which that video would have shown that bent piece of wire returning to a paperclip shape.
How long is the video?
I think it's about a minute, so probably not going to show it.
Okay. Cut to the middle if you want, just so we can see.
Okay.
It's like the
I'm
highlight.
muted for a bit because the guy's kind of annoying.
Well,
Yeah, okay, well.
Take two. The thing you can do.
That's a paperclip there.
Yeah, well,
so it went into the hot water and it's returned to the paperclip shape.
yeah.
It goes back, so it's shaped reversible.
Yeah.
Has anybody done this before? This application?
I mean, I played with this before, but not the
Okay,
class.
but maybe you want to do patent disclosure.
You do what?
A patent disclosure for the use of this in that application. So, okay, so anybody heard this? Don't tell anybody that they did it.
Okay, next slide. Go back. There we go. Well, we don't need the microphone.
Does anybody have class at 9 o'clock? Right now? We can probably go over a little bit.
I need to go and talk to the emerge students
Okay.
too, so that's
Okay, so this is our design of the enclosure. This is a 3D mock-up. What we decided to do, for the sake of size, we decided to stack the PCB on top of the battery. So inside the enclosure, as you see right here, we have 4 posts at each corner of the PCB, and the post has 2 levels. A thicker level on the inside so that the PCB can't go any further, and behind that we have the battery, which we show, which is exposed right here. The locking mechanism is a simple sear. Here's the locking bar. So far, what we had the sear made out of was just the PLA plastic of the 3D printer. This is the nitinol. It'll be soldered to the end of the PCB here at the end of a MOSFET, and the nitinol will be connected to that. So what we plan on doing is when we send current through the nitinol, it will contract, pulling back on the sear and disengaging the lock.
Are you gonna, so this is to guide the wire as it's attaching for the durability, so it's not too clumsy? We can talk about that
Yeah,
later.
you guys can.
Okay. So that video is when we were at the Sacramento Arcade Library to print out our enclosure. And it's right here. This is what it looks like.
Just pass it around. Give it to
Okay.
the person.
There are some flaws that in that the sear is very
Okay.
very weak,
The good thing is you made a prototype and get idea what it's going to look like.
and we were not sure of the tolerances, so we had to actually work on the enclosure by like enlarging the holes for the locking bar and milling some of the material away.
You guys can go on to the next slide.
Okay.
So this is our PCB design for our lock. Right. This is our PCB design for the lock. And our board is fairly simple because our lock really only needs to perform two actions, which is to unlock and also lock. So the heart of the board is obviously the PSOC4 BLE, which will be handling all of the processes going on the board. The other major components on this would be the MOSFET transistor, which is right next to the PSOC4 BLE, which is handling the current going towards going to our nitinol wire, because the PSOC BLE itself cannot source enough current to activate the nitinol. So we need a way for the PSOC to be able to control the current but not source it directly. So we decided to have the PSOC controlling a MOSFET transistor, which then controls the current. We also put on a large supercapacitor of about 47 millifarads capacitance, because the battery itself also can't source that much current. So we have a supercapacitor helping it out, sourcing current along with
Use
it.
that supercapacitor, be very careful in terms of safety.
Yeah.
You can get a real, it's potentially serious shock.
Yeah.
We don't deal with correctly. Just make sure you pay attention, very careful.
Yeah. And okay, so we also decided to take off the USB charging circuit as it was taking up too much.
Safety is a big issue.
Yeah.
So you really have to make sure.
We also decided to take off the USB charging circuit off of the board as it was taking up far too much room, and we decided to just pre-charge the battery and then plug it into the board. So we have the voltage regulator still on the board, since we need that to hold the steady 2-volt source that the PSOC needs to operate. And the programming pins have been shoved off the board due to the supercapacitor taking up too much room. So we have decided to go with a cutoff method where we would program the PSOC, and then once it is done programming, we cut the pins off and leave it with a 1 inch by 1.5 inch shape.
Okay, so so far our unit cost, this is without the enclosure, without our final enclosure. So our unit cost roughly was $40, but if we include the enclosure, we still have not chosen a 3D printing service right now, but it's roughly around $20 to $30.
So you guys went to the library, now you can probably have the CAD files. I can get you access to ones in the electric car people. They have a very good printer they're running, and it's full production, so we'll talk about that later.
Okay. Yeah, so yeah, if the printing is free, then it'll be around $40 for one lock. So this is the overall cost analysis. The main part would have been the enclosure, but since that we can probably just negate that, the power components would cost the most.
Can you go back for a second? Why is your battery so expensive? What kind of battery do you have?
It's 100.
The battery here, I think the battery here was assuming the old 2500 milliamp hour battery, which we have decided to scale down to a 150 milliamp hour battery now. Although
The nitinol, that's for like 3 meters of nitinol, right?
that was for
An inch.
that was for 1 meter of nitinol, which I put it here as the unit price for the minimum purchase possible,
Okay.
because we can't buy any less than 1 meter. They won't sell us any less.
This is our power usage, and basically how it's going to work. The battery is going to go to the voltage regulator and then to the P-sock and then the MOSFET. But the battery is also going to go straight to the MOSFET, which is then going to power the nitinol. And roughly, we're using a 3.7 volt battery with 150 milliamp hours. So it's like 0.55 watt hours. And we're estimating that it's 1.2 watts to unlock the stroke use the power for the nitinol, and about 0.3 watts for P-sock. So altogether, and we are estimating that it's also only going to track for half the second. And then from that, it's going to be about 2,664 uses. So if you do it like 5 times a day, it's going to be about 1.5. It's going to last about 1.5 years before you change the battery. And it's a simple communications chart. So P-sock communicates with the phone app with BLE, and then it communicates to the nitinol through PWM. And it's battery test point use voltage. And then simple state diagram. We just have the locked state and the unlocked state. And this is what our phone app will eventually get to. So it's going to have an unlock button, and then we're also going to have the trusted users. So it's going to go to the different page, and we're going to have the different IDs that will be allowed to unlock, and you can also remove.